I'm old enough to remember when the police, Victoria Police, came out and said this about protesting.
And we're very keen to support community here in giving voice to their concerns and their protest and ensuring that the city is kept safe, that people in the city are kept safe and protesters are able to lawfully exercise their right to protest.
So that was during the Black Lives Matter protest, or prior to the protest happening, when the government came out and said, "Look, there's nothing we can do about this because, people have a right to protest." Which was even then, which was a bit funny because a few weeks before the Black Lives Matter protest, there was a lockdown protest, which was stopped by the government. So this was at the very early stages of our initial lockdown. So we've come full circle because there's a protest that's being planned for this weekend, a protest for our freedoms, a protest by people who disagree with the lockdown, who disagree with the government making people wear masks and all these kind of things. So, and there's about maybe 400 people that apparently have said that they're going to attend, and the police have and the government have been very strict about this and come out with very strong messaging. Which is what I wanted for the Black Lives Matter protest. I as much as I might agree with some of the points these protesters are making, I don't think it's a correct time to be protesting. So I'm kind of happy that it's being stopped. But what I wanted to discuss was the way in which the government acts based on which group is deciding to protest. So we have one instance where it was very kind of admitted. It was plainly admitted that people generally have a right to assemble to protest, and in this instance, before the protest has even occurred on the weekend, the police have raided the houses of the organizers and arrested them. Okay, so think about this: in Victoria, in Australia, the police have raided the house of two people who were planning a protest against the government and arrested them. Okay, and charge them with inciting. I expect this kind of thing in different countries, and maybe these extraordinary circumstances that we face with the pandemic means that the government has to take these tough measures. What I do find interesting is, though, that here we have proof: the Victoria Police, the state government, when they want to, they can act. And they can act in such a way that it beggars belief just what length they're prepared to go to stop something like this from occurring. But they choose not to when it doesn't suit their political interest, their political ideologies. They could have sent a very strong message early on during the organization of the Black Lives Matter protest by raiding the houses of the organizers and arresting them. But that wouldn't have gone down so well, that would have caused a lot more trouble, I think. And I understand why they didn't do that. But again, the excuse they gave for that was not that they couldn't do that, that they had no choice, that people have a right to protest. And here we have a situation where that right is all of a sudden just gone. Okay? The argument that was made then was, regardless of whatever's happening, whatever pandemic lockdown laws we have, that people have a right to protest. Okay, so we might disagree with these masked people. We might disagree with these lockdown protesters. We might disagree with their views about masks and all these kind of things. But do they have a right to protest? Do they have a right to protest against their government? Okay, in the future, do we have a right to protest against our government? Or has some strange new precedent been set that we're all accepting at this point in time, that the government can just come into your house if you're sharing an opinion that they don't agree with? So these kind of issues have popped up, and the only reason that they've popped up as issues, and the only reason I'm bringing it up, is just to highlight the hypocrisy. Okay, I definitely don't want mass gatherings at the moment, whether they're protests or whatever. I don't want them to happen. So in one way, I support the actions taken by the government, but a part of me knows that we are losing certain rights and civil liberties that we should have. There should be an expectation that we can't be arrested for just merely the act of planning a protest, because that alone should not be enough of a reason for them to come. They can let the people gather there, and then the police can go there and arrest them. Okay, they can do it that way. But to actually stop people from kind of having these ideas about protests, I think that's kind of a very dangerous area that we're going into. If this was what they did to the organizers of the Black Lives Matter protest, I would have had the same opinion then, that they shouldn't be arresting these people prior. Now, some people would argue that, well, that puts the government in a really hard situation. Yeah, definitely, it puts them in a really tough situation. But they could have made this tough call that they made back then, okay? So they've made this call now about these protesters, and they've arrested the organizers, which is fine. A lot of people won't be happy about this, but I'm happy to put up with this as a citizen this time around. But we can't have, when the next protest comes around for an issue that Daniel Andrews ideologically agrees with, we also need then, Daniel, for you to send your police in and to arrest those protest organizers and to stop that protest from happening. As long as going forward everything is the same, as a citizen of Victoria, I'll be very happy. But if we have these double standards in the next 6 weeks, depending on which group might be protesting, there's going to be lots of, it's just not right. Because we might have climate activists protesting. Okay, so we need to raid their houses as well and make sure they're arrested for the mere act of thinking about protest. Okay, we might have people protesting about, Black Lives Matter again in the next 6 weeks. So we need you then, Daniel Andrews, to send in the police to arrest those organizers, because you've set a standard now. This is the standard. Otherwise, it just looks like, tyranny. It looks like the government, the state-sponsored tyranny of the government, by stopping people from sharing their dissent of the government. We're pretty much in, crazy times in Victoria. And some people might say that this matches up with the dictates of Comrade Dan perfectly, and this is exactly what he wants for the state of Victoria. I would have said that every single protest that's happened so far has been dangerous during this pandemic. People gathering like that, coming from different parts of the country or different parts of the state, more like it, and getting together in that way, it causes a major issue in terms of transmission. You just need one person there that has the virus, that's asymptomatic, has no idea that they've got it, to kind of spread it along to a few other families and create a few more outbreaks. So that's the risk you run with having these kind of protests. And that was a real risk that I felt during the Black Lives Matter protests, which the police said, of course, there's nothing they can do because people have to
lawfully exercise their right to protest.